All right. Hello, Emmanuel. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good as well. Thank you for asking. So, you're actually my first highlight. I don't know what I'm going to really call it, but as I told you, I love seeing Christians who are doing really cool stuff for the Lord using their talents. So I just wanted to start something where I can just kind of highlight you guys and you can talk about your talents and all that good stuff. But because this is a Christian sexuality podcast, I do want to ask you a question that is geared towards
Mhm.
sexuality first, if you're okay with that.
Hey man, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Cool. Cool, cool. So my first question is, what is something you wish you knew about Christian sexuality sooner?
Yeah, I think for me, like it was honestly just like learning. I wish I knew just like honestly like instead of like stopping doing certain things, like how like first why we need to like stop doing certain things, and two, what are like the better alternatives, if that makes sense. Slash, what do we actually need? Because I think for me, growing up, like I learned a lot about just like staying away from sex before marriage, right? Or other sexual things and stuff like that. And it was always like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from it, but it was never like a why should I stay away, or why is that quote unquote bad for me? You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Because I feel like with things like
Yeah.
quote unquote murder, like just murdering, like killing a life, that's not a good thing, So stay away from that. But it's like with the sex outside of marriage, it was like I didn't really think that I was hurting anybody, so why should I like stay away from that?
Mm.
So I think I wish I just knew why certain things were not bad in terms of sexuality stuff, and also what is better to like fulfill it, because I feel like we all have desires and innate just wants, you know what I'm saying? So how can I better fulfill that if it's not having sex before marriage or other sexual activities, you know what I'm saying? And I just wish that I just had a
Yeah.
better just knowledge of that. I wish people taught me more about that, because now I understand why sex before marriage is bad, right? It's like I understand that like soul ties are
Mm-hmm.
a thing. Like God wants to kind of protect us and keep sex for in the marriage bed and stuff like that. And it's like, but when we're just almost like, I mean, there's actually a proverb that talks about how you shouldn't just like go to different springs or something like that. Kind of talking about how like there's
Mm-hmm.
the wife is like the only person that you need to go to. But if you're just going to different streams of water, it's like you're just kind of spreading yourself thin. So I've learned like that's why. But I think before really wish I knew why I shouldn't do certain things.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point. I didn't actually think about that till you said it. Like, obviously, most sins we know, like, we can see the obvious negative effects of it. Murder, you're killing a human being, but sex is
Mm-hmm.
actually a good thing at the same time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like the time frame that you need to wait for. So, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it's so much more important to first phrase it as something that's a good thing, but also let people know why to wait to have that good thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I feel like it gets so dicey because it's still a good thing, but then churches are making it seem like a bad thing, and then all of a sudden it becomes a good thing. So
Yeah.
it is very confusing how it's been not taught to us.
No, that's true. And like I actually just watched a video maybe a couple weeks ago, and the person was kind of talking about how like then even in the confines of marriage, like people then get confused as to what to do and all this stuff and all that jazz. But it's like I feel like when you look at the scriptures, like you see God is like stay away from like having sex outside of like before marriage, right? So like sexual morality, impurities, like fornication, all that stuff. But then in the marriage, like while you're in marriage, like I feel like people can get confused as to all right, now what is like the rules and all this stuff. And honestly, like when you look at a book like even Song of Solomon, which I definitely wanted to do a deeper dive into, but just what I've seen so far is like they're
Mm-hmm.
very free. If that makes sense, like they're very just ex- like just yeah, they're very free. Like they do what they feel like they want to do. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that is just the beauty of doing things the right way according to what God says. It's like once you do it the right way
Yeah,
and
that's good.
exactly what God is telling you to do, then it's like there's freedom in that, because now it's like it's away from sin and you're just free. That's why even in the Christian walk, it's like once you're saved, and once you're saved, it's like you're free to know that like everything that you're doing from this point on to the rest of your life? Like, is God not only sanctifying you, but is God making you more like Jesus? And there is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus, as Romans 8 talks about. So it's like, not that you're going to be deliberately sinning against God after you're saved, but it's more of like a freedom of like, okay, now I'm no longer bound by sin. You know what I'm saying? So I just like how when you're married, it's like you don't have to be bound by like just OD restrictions of like this and that, this and that. And yes, you want to be so mindful of a lot of things, but for the most part, like once you're in marriage, you're free. You know what I'm saying, to do what you got to do and glorify God through that. But which is another cool thing.
Yeah. That's beautifully put. I definitely agree. So yeah. See, and I think it's really cool to have these conversations with different creatives and people, because you don't even know like what they think about, where they come from, where they're at on the subject. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So now we're going to get into who you are, what you do. So tell the people what your talent is.
Yeah, for sure. So I think my talent, I feel like it's been made clear to me just through these past couple of years that one of my talents is definitely just the creative practice and just like working in the medium of like art and stuff like that, to be able to use that to express myself, my thoughts, and like to glorify God through. So I'll say that's definitely my talent for sure.
Yes, and I know you're not gonna big up yourself, so I will do it. This man is so talented, and I just love how you incorporate scripture and just like the beauty of just being a Christian and the struggle on earth, like, and just struggling with your thoughts and different things like that. You've like made that so beautiful, like with music and how you've done it on TikTok. And we'll what's the word? We'll plug that later on, but yeah, I think it's beautiful what you do. So what was like the progression of your talent like for you? Like, I know everyone is a child and starts drawing, and we all think, parents put their little pictures on the wall and my kid's an artist, but you actually have continued in that. So just kind of talk to us about the progression of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, like, I grew up like doing a lot of art stuff. Like, I like wrote in school sometimes. Like, they'll give us assignments. They're like, "Oh, go write something." I'll go write. Go paint something. I'll go paint. All this stuff. Go draw. I'll draw. Like through that, like I kind of found something that was it was just the medium that was always presented to me. So I just used that to not express myself as children do. And I feel like a lot of children are always drawing, always coloring, painting, all this stuff, because they know that's a way to express themselves. So I was doing that, but I like stopped drawing and stuff like that when I got to after middle school, so going into high school, because I got introduced to like track and field, which is like a sport that I do even in college right now. But through that, like, cool. I like pretty much just stopped doing all kinds of creative stuff. Like, I just like only focused on track and field, only focused on athletics, and that was my only focus for literally all 4 years until I started to back up again a couple of years back. Like, I was just focused on athletics and just move like body stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then quarantine happened, and then you're pretty much at home. Like, my athletics was done at school. So then it's just a lot of time for me to explore a lot of different things and really figure out a lot of different things about myself. And around that time, I became a Christian in February 2020. So around that time, I was exploring a lot of Christianity. So it's definitely like, just like over a couple of years ago, I became a Christian. So I was around that time, I was like figuring out a lot about just what it looks like to walk with God, what I feel like my specific giftings are, and stuff like that. So I remember around May or April, it'd be at May of 2020. I remember I was watching, my church had like this like online event. And this guy came up, and then he was like doing a spoken word, right? He was like a poetry, like a poem that he was performing. And I remember I just listened to it, and I was like, yo, that's crazy. Like, that's wild. Because I remember a couple years back, like during high school, I would watch this guy named Clayton Jennings, who was a spoken word artist as well. And I was just like so captivated by like the words that he would like, the way he would use words, almost like, he did just the way he was like juggling the words, like a word acrobatic type of vibe, you know what I'm saying? Just like making it so beautiful. And I was like, wow. So I remember that night after I watched it in May 2020, I like stayed up And I was like, I really didn't have to, but I was like, let me just make something like that, just let me write something like that. And I did. I stayed up and I wrote my first ever like spoken word, right? And which is still on my Instagram. And I remember after that, I was like, this is cool. Like, and this is fun because it's like I'm able to express myself in a way and also glorify God and really just put my thoughts out onto paper in a way that's art and poetic and all this stuff. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, yeah, over 2020, I just kept writing, kept doing all that stuff. But I felt like my writings progressed into wanting to make it seen by people. I wanted to be able to like show it out. You know what I'm saying? So I would write something. I'm like, how could I like show it? So that's when, through like TikTok, through Instagram, YouTube, whatever, just getting inspired by different artists, I got into film, like filmmaking and like trying to show out my writings into actual visual mediums and stuff like that. And then I got into like videography, photography, different artists, literally just so many artists were inspiring me to just go into a lot of different creative things. There's another artist his name is like, he's like a Photoshop artist or whatever, named Caleb. And I saw his work and I just saw how visual it was. And I was like, if I could take scripture and then be able to create it and then also be able to show my writings, that'd be dope. So then 2021, I got into like conceptual photography. And then literally throughout all 2021, another medium of like 3D art and 3D design came about. And
not it just being a year.
Amen. That's how God works, bro. But it's like, it's crazy. Yeah, but then I got into 3D art and 3D design around like last summer. And I was like, yo, that's so cool that now it's like, it looks realistic sometimes, but then I can also like show again some of the visuals and some of the things in my mind. But again, I say all that to say like, literally my creative journey started pretty much like a couple years ago when I got into like that first writing, you know what I'm saying? Like spoken word. Cause it then led into like me wanting to show things out and my thoughts out into like things that people can see and appreciate and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Lord gives us gifts and it's in those giftings that we may feel closer to the Lord. Like there's some people who, they are fine with like coming late to service and not hearing worship because they don't really connect to the Lord like that. They connect more by hearing the reading of the word. But myself personally, I love music. My dad was a pianist. That's why my name is Sonata. So like music is such a big part of who I am. So I connect heavily in that way. So how do you feel like having this talent has impacted your walk with Christ and just like life in general?
Yeah, I think for me, like being able to have this talent has not only helped me to be able to, I was talking about it, like just expressing myself, but I felt like for me, it goes deeper than just being able to express my thoughts and stuff like that. It's literally a way for me to like worship God, you know what I'm saying? And I think we are all born with certain giftings, we're all born with certain personalities and just different innate things that only we connect to, right? So I feel like when you're able to really tap into like the thing that God has really gifted you in or has put on your heart to be able to create for the world or whatever, that it just gets to a deeper level of worship that not every single person can be able to get to in that specific thing. Just like how for you, it's like music and stuff like that. Maybe for somebody else that's not as like into music or whatever, it's like that might not always be the way that they need to worship. Maybe it's something else, right? Maybe it is just serving more. Or maybe it is just like preaching more. I don't even know, but it's like we all have different things that God has gifted us in to be able to worship to the best of our ability. You know what I'm saying? Like in Romans 12, it talks about how you need to give your life or your body as a living sacrifice, right? So it's like once you're able to tap into the thing that God has gifted you in, now since it's so like deep inside you and a gifting that God has given you, you can then be able to use that and worship Him through literally every part of your life. And for me, I see like even in my day to day, the days I don't like the time periods where I feel like I'm not creating as much, I almost feel like I'm leaving something like I'm not worshiping God to the best of my ability. You know what I'm saying? But the times that I am creating, whether or not I post it or not, it helps me to be able to meditate more on the word of God and be able to worship God more. In Psalm 1, I believe it talks about how like it contrasts like the blessed man and the wicked man. It says that the blessed man is a man that meditates on God's word day and night, right? And for me, when I'm able to, because usually a lot of the things I create around is about the scriptures and about God and my walk with God. And for me, when I'm able to like connect with God and like reading the Bible and then be able to take something that I learned from the Bible and then create something around that, for me, it just brings me to a whole another level of meditation and really just being able to internalize what God is teaching me. That then helps me to actually be able to remember it more throughout my day, that I'm much more likely to actually live it out. You know what I'm saying? And then for me, it's like, I mean, I think when it comes to the whole Christian walk, there's a reason why God doesn't just like lift us up to go to heaven when we get saved. It's because we need to have an impact in this life, right? We need to actually go out and make disciples. So for me, another thing too about creating as to why I post it now, it's like now I'm able to take what God is teaching me and then be able to share with other people that they can also be inspired, right? So now it's like, not only does it bring me to a whole nother level of worshiping God for myself, also brings me to a whole nother level of being able to share what God is teaching me to be able to inspire people that might not always be hit by a preaching or a song or something else. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it just has really just changed my whole walk in a way, and like the way I look at it. And yeah, so it's definitely just been something that God has definitely used to impact my walk, other people's walk, and just my mindset in general.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as Christians we kind of may downplay our talents that are not being a preacher or anything like that, but you're still doing the Lord's work. Like I've been touched by what you've done, and I look back at your page like just to see like what are you doing, like what's the Lord saying to you, just to see how I can improve my relationship with Him, and I can see things differently from your point of view. So I definitely agree that you have impacted other people with your art as well. But I wanted to ask you too. I don't know. I think you did say like you kind of started using your talent more for Christ. Has there been a time where you haven't always used it to honor the Lord?
Yeah, so I would say like, I mean, for me it was much more of like, because usually I hear like a lot of creators, it's more of like I used to make music, so I used to make it for the world or for myself, and then I got saved and then I started using it for Christ. For me, it was actually much more of like, because I mean, I kind of told you a little bit about how, I mean, I used to draw, I used to do stuff when I was little, and then I stopped it to do track, to pursue other things. So I think for me, it was much more of a call back to, nah, this is what I actually gifted you in, right? So for me, it was because like, I mean, I was drawing and stuff like that when I was little, but it was like only for a few years, and it was only because that was what the medium that was presented to me at first. But I think for me, it was much more of like I was pursuing something else, and then it was a call back to, nah, this is what you got to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like, because I remember track and field athletics used to be my idol. Like, I used to wake up and only watch track videos. I would be in school, and instead of listening to the class, my teacher, I would like be watching a lot of track videos. I was like so invested in track, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to just go as far as possible in track and field as possible. So for me, when COVID happened, it's much more of a call back. Like, this is not what I actually want you to be doing, but I need you to actually do this instead. And I almost think about it like with Moses. It's like he grew up around the Egyptians, right? He was doing the things that the Egyptians would do, right? But then like around the time that people were almost like looking down at him because he had killed somebody, and then he ran away to Midian. Then God was like, through like when he was just shepherding like the sheep and stuff, he was like, no, I actually want you to shepherd my people now in Israel. So it's much more of like, although you did grow up in Egypt for a good amount of time, that's not what I want you to be doing. I want you to actually be a shepherd for the Israelites. So for me, it was almost like that, where it's like I was so invested in track and field that was much more of like a callback to, nah, this is not your idol. Like, when this is not the thing you should be doing. You should be actually using these gifts instead to serve me. So that's what I feel like my story in terms of creativity is, rather than like, oh, I was using it to do something else, and then God said this. It was much more of a direct, different focus to then start using my gifts for God.
Yeah, and even as you're talking, it reminds me like we have so many. I think many people are born to be great at more than one thing. So I mean, I was going to kind of ask you if you feel like there's any other talents that you have that, you know, people may not know. I mean, they may not know that it's track, but do you feel like you've been able to use track to honor the Lord as well? Or has it kind of just been more like an idol that you need to move on from?
That's a very good question. Yeah, so with track, like, I mean, it was definitely one of those things where, like, to the best of my ability, I would always like give God the glory. Anytime I had a success, anytime I was doing whatever, talk about God, like I was definitely very into it, and I was definitely like always trying to make sure that the things that I did always like try to glorify God in it. But I think for me, it just got to a point where, I mean, I still do track at my school, like because I actually just love the events that I do. I do like jumping events and stuff like that. Like I just love them for the fun of it. So I still do it, but I think the focus was different because even though I did still try to like use, I mean, there's a scripture that talks about in everything you do to the glory of God, right? So even if I didn't like quit or anything like that, I'm still doing it. There's an aspect of it where I'm like, I'm still using my body to glorify God, and I'm always going to be talking to Him throughout. Whenever I compete, I'm always going to be pointing the glory back to Him. And I still think that track is a way to glorify God. Even like, I mean, you see people like Sadie McLaughlin, you know what I'm saying, where she's using her gift in track and field, and she's breaking records, and she's always pointing it back to God. And that's a specific thing that God has gifted her. The reason why for me, I just don't think that was for me was because of the fact that like, there is another path that I could glorify God more. And you know what I'm saying? And just like how, like when I'm in school or I don't even know, serving or doing other things, I can still glorify God in it. There are specific giftings that God has given us to glorify Him more, right? So that's where I feel like the relationship is that I can still use track for God's glory. I mean, that's why I'm still doing it. But I feel like creating and creativity is definitely my path where I feel like I can use that to glorify Him a lot more.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I think that's usually how it ends up happening. If you have more than one talent, you just kind of figure out which one you're more comfortable or could be more long term, but also like can glorify God the most. And that kind of leads me to my next question. Have there been like any opportunities for you that you've had to forfeit because you know it wouldn't please the Lord through your art?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think honestly, like, 'cause I mean, I think through creating and through being able to share my work online, you always get people that hit you up and just be like, oh, can we work together? Or can we do this? And can we do that? And some of the people are not always like Christians or religious or whatever. They're just doing things because, I mean, yeah, they just want to just create for their own pleasure or whatever. And but that comes with the territory of being able to, of people hitting you up that are wanting you to like either take photos of them in a way that's not always like righteous. Create, even like I remember there's a time that somebody wanted me to create cover art for them, but it was more so for their practice of just like spirituality, like just crystals and all this stuff, and almost like I felt personally that me creating a cover art for this purpose was gonna be able to promote something that I didn't necessarily agree with, right? Now there's a time and place. Like I'm not saying like, oh, don't create and don't associate with anybody that's not a Christian. I'm just saying that for me personally, that me creating something for that person was almost promoting something that I did not agree with, right? So I've had to learn a lot about just like going back to my roots, going back to my morals, and being able to see like, okay, what should I do that will glorify God? And yes, like I said, I still work with people that are not always Christians, but it's about actually seeing it and being like, would this still glorify God? And stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think you already knew why I was asking that question because, you know, there are those hard situations that we encounter. And like even myself personally with this podcast, I had this opportunity to partner with someone that probably would have made me a decent amount of money. Okay. But I'm like, I cannot promote that. I cannot promote that on my podcast, and I cannot be a part of doing that because it just does not honor the Lord. And I couldn't live with myself because like you're saying, like you just can't, because Christ is my whole desire in life. I want to honor him in every single thing that I do, every step that I make. So there are going to be situations where I'm going to have to forfeit worldly treasures and worldly accolades for Christ. And I think that's important for creative people to know. So that's why I wanted them to just hear your perspective on that, and that you have had to do that. Have you had some cool opportunities through, honoring the Lord that you want to share?
That for me, it's definitely has definitely been like experiences of working with people for the sake of even like building opportunity that would then lead to something else that makes sense. So I definitely don't have like stories right now of like, oh, like this big company hit me up and this and that. I definitely don't have that just yet, but I do have stories of people that have hit me up that have honestly has been stepping stones for me that I could definitely see progressing. I had a friend who owns a clothing company that wanted me to make like an animation for him because he was producing, well, he was making like a line or whatever, like a drop. So I had never done an animation to that extent before. So for me, it was much more of like, okay, now I have to like focus and work and create something that not only the person would like, but then be able to also captivate what the person wanted to be able to do the drop. And the clothing company is called Young Sons of God. And I remember just like creating the animation for that, and I was like, dang, I was just really happy to be able to make something, knowing that, oh, this is definitely helping my skills to progress. Because again, I've been doing like 3D art for like a year now, so it's like every opportunity I can get to be able to expand on my skills is always the best. Because I can just definitely see that just moving forward. And for me, like one of my biggest goals is to definitely make more Christian 3D films type vibe. You know what I'm saying? That I can be able to show the world. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully see it hopefully on the big screen type of vibe. So I think every opportunity right now that I have is a win for me, is a success because of the fact that I get to be able to use my gifts and progress more. Yeah, and then like just for the future and stuff like that. So that's I guess a success. It might not be on the biggest scale, but that's a big success that I feel like it's definitely a stepping stone for me to I can definitely see moving forward. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm considering that a big success because it's all a part of the bigger scheme. I see you going places, so that's why I had to get in early. You know what I'm saying? So what is some advice you have for someone who's a creative, maybe at where you're at, or maybe wanting to be where you're at? That's a Christian, that you just kind of would want to impart to them.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you hear this a lot, but always remember your why. Remember why you're doing things, right? But then, like, not even just remember the why, but like, make sure your why is strong and make sure your why is on a strong foundation. Because there's people that have whys, and when it comes to creativity, of, oh, I just want to make my name big. I just want to make money and this and that. And yes, that's a quote unquote a why, but it's not a strong foundational why, right? And I would say have a strong why. For me, one of my biggest whys is I want to be able to use my giftings to glorify God, but then inspire people that have not always been inspired in their life, inspire people to consider their Christian walk, inspire people to grow in their Christian walk, inspire people to share more about what they're learning. And for me, it's my why is always glorifying God and being able to help people to be inspired and to also consider God more. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a lot of friends that are not Christians, and I mean, they see my work and they love it. And I always pray that my work is hopefully sparking something in their mind, right? So that's my why. That's one of my whys, right? So going back to the helps me that in the times that I'm struggling to create something, the times that I don't want to do anything, it reminds me that, no, I can still do this. I mean, like, this is my why, so let me just go back and just start doing it, right? So I'll say remember your why. Another thing, too, that I would say is just be a constant learner. Like, you're not going to know everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to start creating and be the best videographer, best artist, best painter. Like, that's just not it. Like, that's just not how it works. And even if it is God's gifting to you, you're not going to be like the best right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think about people like even Paul, for instance, right? It's not even, he wasn't like, yeah, he honestly, his giftings was much more of like, I mean, they call him the apostle of the Gentiles. So like, he would go out and just preach and was all around. But he had to learn how to preach better. He had to learn how to actually engage with people better. All this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Moses, yes, God called him to leadership. but he definitely had to learn how to lead better, how to speak better, how to actually inspire people better through a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different situations that you read about in the Bible. If you're creative and you feel like, okay, God has gifted me given me this gift, don't start thinking that, okay, I should be good right off the bat. It's like, no, you have to learn a lot. Constantly look at like videos, constantly look at courses, look at more people's content, look at more people's work so you can like be inspired, where you can learn a lot of different skills to then progress. So I'll say, remember your why, keep learning, and honestly, just like have fun. Like, it's like, I think that's another thing too that people don't think about, is that people always want to just like capitalize on the giftings and be like, oh, I can make money from this and this can do this and do that. It's like, no, like at the end of the day too, God has given you that gift to also use to help you and to grow your walk with him. Like you see David dancing in God's presence. Like there's no one around. Usually it was literally just him dancing in God's presence, him using his giftings for God. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to always share it. He didn't have to always do something about it. It's just him having fun with it. Right. So I'll say those three things, like remember your why and make sure it's a foundational, strong why. Right. I'll say keep learning, like never be satisfied and just like never be content in what you know. Always be learning more, and then always have fun. Sometimes you literally have to make something and then not post it, intentionally not post it for the sake of just having fun with it. Sometimes you literally just use your gift to give to somebody else without necessarily their praise or anything like that. Like there are times that like I don't want to make something to post, but I'll literally just make something to give to somebody else because I know that will help me and my heart to just have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? So have fun, like keep learning, and just remember your why. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Good stuff. I love it all. Love it all. So glad I had you on here. I do have two more questions for you. One question is, do you feel like there is another talent that people don't know you have other than track and drawing that just people don't know that you have? Could be something funny too.
Okay. I would say, I don't know if this is like a talent, but I definitely have rhythm. I can definitely move. I can dance. You know what I'm saying? I can definitely keep up with beat. I am very much so. And my personality, I just like, I can be chill and I can be introverted and all this stuff. I can definitely be out there. I can definitely be whatever. I just like to vibe, you know what I'm saying? So I like skating. I recently got into it like a month ago and I loved it. Like it's mad addicting. I have like an indie vibe, so I definitely like indie music as well. So I'll say that for me, it's just definitely being able to like learn things in a way that's like fun. Like I'm very much childish. Like I'm very much childlike Manny, you know what I'm saying? Like I very much just like to have fun. I guess like that could be like the talent of honestly just being able to help people to, I don't even know, have fun and like turn a frown upside down type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like bring a good energy and stuff like that. And yeah, I can juggle, you know, just keeping with the childlike nature. I can juggle. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Okay.
I can do a backflip. I'm very much able to do stuff like that, acrobatics type of vibe. And yeah, like
how confident are you in your juggling?
I'm confident in my juggling. Like 3 balls, give me 3 balls. I can juggle that.
All right, let's see something then.
Okay, I gotta get a ball.
Oh, a ball.
Right, let's see.
Dang.
I'm gonna get a ball real quick. I think I have a couple later.
Okay.
I got you.
All right, we about to see.
Got you. Okay. These are not the same balls, right? But
they're not. This is a harder level then.
Yeah. I got you.
Oh.
Hey, man.
Oh.
Wait. No. It's
okay.
Dorm room. It's not. Okay, I got you.
Oh, all right. Oh. We love to see it.
Hey, man.
Oh, dang. You're actually really good. What the heck?
There we go.
Good stuff. All right. Also, one more question for the ladies. I don't know. They're probably going to want to know, are you single and ready to mingle? What's going on? What are we doing?
That's a good question. I am single at the moment, but I'm figuring things out with a potential somebody. So we'll see. We'll see. So yeah,
Okay.
I definitely am
Okay.
not
Okay.
like on the table. I'm definitely not on the table right now, but I am quote unquote single. And if you were to put it on the page,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
ladies, you heard that. Well, just hold off for a second. I'm not giving y'all his Instagram so you can slide in his DMs. I just want y'all to have his information so you can follow him for the talent. So, what is your Instagram for the people, or your any other socials too?
Okay, so on Instagram it's at childlikemanny, no space, no nothing. On TikTok is at childlike.manny.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Yes, I'm so glad you came on the podcast today. As you guys know, you can follow the Parallel at the Parallel Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook if you want to. But as you guys know, remember to speak the truth in love, kiss the sun, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.